Welcome to Whispers of the Web, where the hidden gems of the web come to life. Join us as we unravel the most fascinating tales, secrets, and discussions from across the web. Every whisper has a story. If you enjoy our journey through the whispers of the web, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share the intrigue. Story number 1. Am I the a-hole? I accused my husband of cheating on me. I, 34 female, and my husband, 36 male, are married since 2017. He was always the sweetest guy, even though he wasn't the best looking one. He was still attractive to me, and we went at it at least 4 times a week. 2 weeks ago he started acting strange and would avoid any touch. I got in bed and asked him if he wants to do. You know it. He proceeded to flinch and hide his phone as soon as he noticed I was beside him. He sighed and told me he was too tired. It wasn't the typical too tired thing. He was straight up mad at me and gave me attitude the whole time. I asked him if something was going on, and got ignored. We both fell asleep after that, but I had a bad feeling about it. The day after, I went to his work to give him food and apologize if I did something wrong. I asked his coworker, which I was friends with, if she saw him anywhere. She told me she didn't see him today and was worried. She asked me if he was sick and I told her not to worry. I texted him, no answer. Called him 2 times, no answer. I was getting worried that maybe something happened to him. I searched up online for any recent accidents, and hoped more than anything not to see his car on any news. I didn't find anything but got a call from him. I let out a sigh of relief when I heard his voice. After that I started feeling angry. I asked him where he was and he told me he was at work. I felt betrayed since he was obviously lying to me, but maybe I was overreacting. I told him I was gonna drop off food for him, and he told me not to because he wasn't hungry. I went in my car and yelled at him asking where he really was. He said I was crazy and accusing him of cheating. I felt bad and ended the call. I'm writing this to have some opinions on my reaction and if he really is cheating or I'm paranoid. I am currently waiting for him to get home. Story number 2. Am I the a-hole for telling my daughter's boyfriend about her trauma to save her family? My daughter, 27 female, has a nice boyfriend, 27 male, and a boy, 2 months old. She isn't being a great partner. She is snappy. Her temper isn't always under control. She is harsh with her little boy, and she is overall an angry person. Her boyfriend is being patient because she isn't directing her anger towards him. But he isn't happy about her being angry most of the time, even if it wasn't directed at him. They started to have problems and started fighting more. She was on the verge of breaking up, and I knew if they did he would take the boy. He would insist because he thought she couldn't deal with kids if her way was being harsh with them, and he wanted a healthy environment for his kid. My daughter doesn't want her son to be taken away from her, ever. She wants to stay with him and see him every day, but she won't take the step to explain and solve everything. She is too stubborn. I had to try and do something to avoid having my grandson taken away from my daughter. I called her boyfriend and asked to meet. I explained everything and told him all that happened. He was disturbed about it. That day he apologized to my daughter. He asked her why didn't she tell him anything. She then told him from her perspective everything, what she felt, what she did after, etc. It was a good start to solve their problems with honesty. She called me and was so mad at me that I told her boyfriend everything without asking her or telling her, that I had no right to say a thing when she didn't. She said her boyfriend is now pressuring her to go to therapy and that it is my fault he is doing this. I tried to explain my reasons and justifications. It was either I tell him, or have her lose her child, or at best have him spend only the weekends. She hung up on me and didn't let me finish my sentence. I tried calling for the next couple of days, but she wasn't picking up. I fixed her relationship with her boyfriend and prevented her from losing her son, but it ruined our relationship. Am I the a-hole? Context. She was sexually assaulted by her uncle and 2 friends when she was 12. She went there by her own choice and was held and wasn't allowed to leave. Story number 3. Am I the a-hole for taking everything I paid for out of my boyfriend's grandma's house because his mom told me that it wasn't my home? So I, female 19, and my boyfriend, male 18, have been dating for 2 years now. Early on in our relationship he has made it clear that he wanted to move in together, and I wasn't opposed to the idea because we have a great relationship and my dad's an alcoholic, so I was happy to get away from him. We didn't have the money then, So he talked to his grandma who had a spare room and asked if he could make that our room and I move in. She said yes, and soon after I moved in. I of course paid rent, so it wasn't for free, but when I moved in I noticed that his grandma is a little lazy around the house. I like her a lot, she's super sweet, but she just doesn't do anything around the house, so it ended up just being me because my boyfriend works a lot, and I didn't want him to come home to a messy house. The thing with his grandma is that she always goes and visits her daughter, 34 female, I'll call her Janice for the story, and helps her out, meaning she cleans and cooks and does all that nice stuff. Then she goes to work and comes home exhausted, so she doesn't do anything around here. I get that she's exhausted, but why is she doing her grown daughter's chores all day every day and lets her own home rot? Anyways, on to the real issue. The house was missing lots of basic things like cleaning stuff like a vacuum cleaner and a toilet seat. I bought those things and plenty more, including other cleaning supplies, cooking supplies, a carpet, like a trillion things to store little stuff in because it was flying all over the place, a cabinet for all her paperwork because that would also fly all over, and etc. You get the gist. So then school starts again, and Janice has 2 little daughters as well as my boyfriend, so she would bring my boyfriend's little sister, female 8, let's call her Maddie, to school at around 7:45 am and then drop by Grandma's house. They would talk for about an hour and then go back to her house. Janice would always ring the doorbell and be extremely loud and wake us up, which would get me heated because on my days off, I like to sleep in. I'm not talking about a ridiculous time like 1 or 2 p.m., but I'd like to sleep until at least 9 a.m., but this wouldn't be possible with all the stomping and loud conversations going on. So I asked Grandma to please ask Janice to not ring the doorbell and call her phone instead so that the bell wouldn't wake me up, and that they closed the kitchen door so I wouldn't hear their conversations as loud. It worked for about 3 days and then went back to being extremely loud. So I asked Grandma again and it would work for another 3 days and then go back, and so on, for about a whole year. Then the new year rolled around and now Maddie's school starts at 7, meaning Janice would be at Grandma's at like 7:05. And she was being extremely loud again, and now I'm pissed off because there is no reason I should be up at 7 a.m. on my day off. So I decided just to ask her instead of Grandma because I thought maybe she'd understand then. So the day went by and I went with my boyfriend to go visit her and talk to her. So I talked, and she got super peeved and butthurt and told me that it's not my home, and I told her that well, I pay rent, and I do basically every single thing around the house. So I should have the right to at least ask her not to ring the doorbell but to call Grandma instead so she can open the door. Or she could just use her spare key if Grandma doesn't pick up or whatever. But she didn't back down and told me I couldn't forbid her from coming, which I wasn't even trying to do. Then she went to her husband, started crying, and he kicked us out. When we got back to Grandma's I was furious and packed up all my things and left. And when I mean all my things, I mean everything I've paid for, including stuff that everyone uses. Because I assumed since it's not my home and I don't get a say in anything, why should my stuff stay there then? So I went back to my dad's for a couple months, and now I'm back at Grandma's because my boyfriend again asked me and I didn't want him to suffer the consequences of something he didn't do, so I folded and went back. It's been like 3 weeks now and I haven't taken any of the stuff back because they haven't stopped being loud in the morning and also haven't started doing anything around the house, so I don't see why I should bring anything back. Now today my boyfriend bought a toilet seat, because they didn't have one this whole time I was gone, and I told him that I wouldn't bring mine back because nothing changed, and he said okay, he'll get one. And when he walked in with the toilet seat, his grandma loudly said, "This one's mine." And at first I thought nothing of it because yes, it is hers, but why did she feel the need to say it that loud? She also makes other remarks about me leaving and taking my stuff and how I can't just leave anymore and I won't be getting a key this time around, and that I hurt my boyfriend so much by leaving in the first place, and how I shouldn't take him for granted, or how things around here aren't gonna change as long as her name is on the lease. I feel like she's being super shady and it's making me feel bad for taking all my stuff back. But I still feel like it was right because I wasn't being treated like an actual part of this household, so why would I pay for anything then? So am I the a-hole for taking my stuff back? Or is she being shady for not dropping it? Thanks for reading. Story number 4. Am I the a-hole for refusing to give my financially struggling aunt money? Okay, judges, here we go. My grandfather was a patriarchic ruler of the family, and when he died in the late 1980s, the family fell apart over some huge inheritance battle. I was still a child back then. The family was quite well off at that time, and there was a number of buildings to inherit. Because of the battle, my dad paid more money for one of those buildings to buy out his siblings than it would have been worth on the market at that time, because they would not let him have it if he didn't. He did this for sentimental reasons related to that building. Years later he went bankrupt with his business, was unable to pay the mortgage, and lost everything. Despite their financial struggles, my parents did everything they could to make sure I received a good education. I now have a good job and make good money. My father died years ago. I help out my mom whenever she needs something, or sometimes just spoil her. Back then one of my aunts, Jane, married her husband, John, because he is the most beautiful man that ever walked the earth. He can't do anything wrong and is a true genius with expensive taste. Truth is, he has never worked seriously a single day after losing his job a few decades ago, but had fantastic business ideas that for some reason never made any money. Fantastic like in trying to sell sand in the desert. Both lived mostly off the money my aunt earned, and from whatever they received during the inheritance battle. Some participants in that battle later reconciled, including my dad and Jane. I did not quite understand the whole reconciliation thing, but never mind. Fast forward to today. All the money is spent, and the couple now lives on the small pension that my aunt is receiving. They are struggling because they did not put money aside from that inheritance. It is known Jane is borrowing money from other family members without being able to pay it back. A few days ago we had a family gathering. At some point, when everyone else was busy doing something, Jane took me aside asking for money for a car repair. I refused politely. Later at the table, when everyone else was present, she said that I am having a well-paying job and could easily afford to borrow her the money for that car repair. Maybe she thought bringing up that subject in front of everyone would add some social pressure to her request. I lost it, and said that she had received a fortune from that inheritance, and instead of preparing financially for retirement, she had spent all of it to keep her great pretender of a husband in the pretending business. And I am not responsible for her financial decisions, and that I will not allow her to cash in a second time, since she won't pay it back anyways. She snapped and rushed out. The other family members called me petty, cruel, and an a-hole. Am I the a-hole? Story number 5. Am I the a-hole for not upgrading my daughter's phone? I have 4 kids, 6 male, 9 male, 15 female, and 17 female. My 15-year-old wanted an iPhone 15 Pro Max for Christmas. I said no. She currently uses a Pixel 5 which I got as a gift from my company. I gave it to her. She's used it for about 2 years now. She wanted an iPhone as according to her she would be the only one in her friend group with an Android. I offered to get her an iPhone 13 for around $600. A couple of her friends' parents are rich and they have the latest phones. Because of this she wants the 15 Pro Max. I don't really like the idea of spending $1,200 on a phone, especially if you aren't going to need it. She offered the base model iPhone 15, but I told her the maximum I would be spending is $600. I was not willing to go beyond that. The iPhone 13 and 15 both look the same. I doubt anyone will notice a difference. It also wouldn't be fair to the other siblings if she got a $1,200 phone and none of her siblings did. She says that she's being left out and wants a big phone. I told her I was not spending above $600. End of discussion. Now my husband wants to consider buying it because she's being socially deprived by having an Android. I said that we were not buying a $1,200 phone, end of story. But my daughter, husband, and my mother-in-law agree with her. So, am I the a-hole? Story number 6. Am I the a-hole for coercing a teen girl into getting an abortion by not being completely honest? I, 40 female, got pregnant as a teen and gave birth to my son when I was 15. My family was very conservative and strict. The moment they found out I was disowned and kicked out of the house, my boyfriend at the time literally turned tail and ran hours after seeing the first ultrasound. This sounds really sad and awful to say, but I felt incredibly lonely and depressed after losing everyone in my life. I've never told anyone, but the reason I gave birth to and raised my son was that I wanted to have at least one person in the world who would love me and let me love him unconditionally. I couch surfed for a while and dropped out of high school to get a job. I ended up getting 3 just to keep my head above water. I would feel so guilty because I just couldn't afford to give my son the life he deserved. I was never able to throw parties, get nice gifts, or even buy new clothes. I couldn't even spend much time with him. I brought him to daycare every single day so I could work. Of course, I had no time for friends or fun. Girls around my age would point and whisper at my son and I. I also know that some strangers would constantly side-eye me and roll their eyes. Should have kept her legs closed. Yeah, thanks. I know. My life was constant work, and only seeing my baby for a second. I lost my sense of self. My entire being was simply boiled down to struggling mom. I love my son more than anything, but the first few years after his birth were the darkest time of my life. Eventually I struggled to earning my GED and going to college. I found lots of success, and now make a good amount of money. My husband that I married later on does too. We have one daughter, Sophie, 15 female. Her best friend is Jade, 16 female, who visits our home often. She's practically family now. One day Sophie asked me to go somewhere private to speak with Jade. She was sobbing and confessed that she was pregnant. She said she's having a hard time deciding what to do. She's tempted to keep the kid and raise it. She asked for some advice since I went through something similar. I told her everything. The poverty, the depression, and the never-ending struggle, as well as my lost sense of identity. I spared no details and told Jade that I think she's better off terminating. She can have another baby, one that she's prepared for in the future and can provide a good life to. She just nodded in a daze. A week later my daughter told me she aborted. It's a sad, but personally a wise choice, to me at least. Later on I was getting drinks with my friend group and was explaining everything and how sad it all was. One of them, Abby, seemed a bit miffed. I asked her what was wrong, and she said I didn't share the whole story, which coerced Jade's decision. This puzzled me and I asked for an explanation. Jade and I have had very different circumstances with our pregnancies. I was incredibly poor and had no one, so my struggle was very tough to say the least. Jade, on the other hand, has nice parents who would be willing to babysit for her. They're rich as well, so they would definitely buy most of the baby things. Her baby daddy is also sticking around and seems supportive. Abby said she understood why I had such a tough time, but Jade would experience everything differently because of her good fortune. She could have her baby and get loads of support. Apparently the fact that I painted a dark picture without considering the various circumstances was irresponsible of me. She says I practically coerced Jade. Now I'm just not sure what to even think. Am I the a-hole? Edit. Rereading this I found out I messed up the names. Sophie is my daughter and Jade is her friend who got pregnant. I'm sorry for the confusion. Story number 7. Would I be the a-hole if I exposed my boyfriend for cheating on Christmas? Me and my boyfriend have been dating for about 4 years, and out of those 4 we have been living together for 1 year. Just recently I found out he was cheating on me. It has happened once before in the past, and he swore up and down that it will never happen again, but here we are in the same situation. We have been doing Christmas in my parents' house every year, but this year he was really adamant about having it at his parents' house this year. After a little bit of back and forth I gave in and decided to go to his parents' house this year. I bought him concert tickets for an artist that I don't really like, but I wanted us to spend time as a couple on something that he really likes. I was going to surprise him with the tickets for Christmas, but now that I know he has been cheating on me, I was planning on including screenshots of him cheating on me as a present too, for him to open it in front of his family. Would I be the a-hole if I expose him to his family on Christmas while the family is opening presents? Story number 8. Am I the a-hole for wanting to break up with my girlfriend after her ex's funeral? So my girlfriend and I have been together for about 4 years. She used to be close friends with her ex. However, he tried to make a move on her while she and I were together, so she cut off their friendship. They knew each other for about 10 years. They were high school sweethearts and stayed together throughout college. They broke up because he did not want kids. He died recently, and my girlfriend was invited to the funeral. While I wasn't happy, so to speak, to see my girlfriend cry about this guy, I swallowed my emotions and offered my full support. She asked me to come with her. Here's where things get messy. She kept talking about how she wishes they never broke up in the first place, and that she's never met someone who she loved as much as him. She made a speech about how she says that if things had been different, they'd be a happy family with children. I had to force myself not to say anything then. Now we're back home, and she hasn't said anything about what she said. I'm so close to just leaving, but I just don't know if she only said that out of grief. Thank you for joining us for today's journey through the whispers of the web. Share your thoughts and suggestions for our next adventure. If you're not yet a part of our whispering community, click the subscribe button and click the bell for notifications to never miss out on another story. Join us next time as we uncover another enthralling tale from the web. Until our next whisper.